So today I'm going to walk us through in how we might be able to take two images and merge them together so that the coloring matches between the two images. And this will help us to improve when we make our composite images. So we're going to work with this image and we're going to work with this image here. Now, ultimately, we're going to put the hiker into this scene right here. And you can see that the color between the two is very different. But one thing that we should always do, and as we should check when we're making our composites, is that to make it easier, we really should be checking to see if the light source is in the same direction for each photo. So when I'm looking at this image here, while the background is pretty washed out, the sky here, I can see that there is a cast shadow and it's coming diagonally from the side here. And this tells me that the light source is somewhere in this direction right here where I'm moving. Now, if I go into this scene here, I'm also seeing diagonal shadows here, which is indicating that the sun is somewhere over here. So the lighting is very similar, and this will make it easier for us to be able to blend these two images together. So I'm going to come over to the hiker here. And the first thing I want to do in this image, I just want to grab the hiker out of this image and move it into the other scene. So I'm going to just zoom in a little bit more here so I can see a bit better. And I'm going to go over to my object selection tool. And instead of actually drawing over this, I'm actually going to click on Select Subject. And I'm going to let this process. Okay. So now that I have this selected, I'm just going to look a little closer. So I just zoomed in a bit here, and I can see that while it did a really good job of capturing the figure right here, actually you can see it missed a few little parts here. So I'm going to switch over to the lasso tool, and holding down the Shift key, I'm going to add to the selection like this. And I'm just going to zoom in a bit more so I can see. And then I'm going to select this like that. And then if I need to deselect, I'm going to hold down the Option key. And when I do the Option key, it gives me the minus selection here so that I can then remove or take away some of that selection. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of follow along the edge here. Here and also in here, and I'm just going to study to see what has been selected and what I might need to select so that I have a good selection here. All right, so I'm going to quickly look at this. It looks like this is part of the shirt here. All right, and like I said, I'm going to keep scrolling down. You can see that in a few areas like this, it was hard for the computer to be able to identify where the edge is, but I'm able to visually to kind of look through this and identify what I need to add to my selection. So again, I'm going to come around here. I'm going to grab part of this like this. And you see I grabbed too much. So then I'm going to go to my option. I'm just going to draw here so that I can remove away some of the selection that I just grabbed. I'm going to, let's see, I'm actually going to take a little bit away from here like that. All right, I think this might be a shoelace here. But I think because it's so hard to see, I'm just going to remove that part here just so that it's not confusing. All right, so I'm going to check here along the edges here. All right, so here I'm going to want to make sure that I deselect. So I'm going to first come in like this, and I'm going to remove part of that, and then I'm going to remove part of this as well, like that. Okay, we're getting a better selection here, like that. Feeling better about that, but it took too much here, so I'm going to just grab that. All right, and then I'm going to kind of just continue. So I'm just going to work my way around. So I'm checking on either side of this. I can see that part of this, when it made the selection, it missed this part here that's in the shadow. So I'm just going to check these edges here like this. Again, I'm holding down the shift key when I'm clicking, and it's keeping or adding to that selection. If I need to subtract from the selection, I hold down the option key. All right, I'm going to quickly scroll down so that I can go on the outside of the leg here, and I'm just using the wheel on my mouse to scroll through this. Let's see, I probably want to remove some of that. There we go. All right. Like I said, I'm just kind of quickly looking around here just to make sure that it's captured what I want. I probably need to subtract a little bit of this right here, like that, and then I need to probably add a bit right here. So there we go, like that. All right, just keep checking along the edges here. All right, I'm probably gonna just select or deselect. Actually, I just by accident added it, so let me come in and subtract that part here. I'm going to subtract a few of these little bumps here that are kind of getting caught in the spaces of the light that's going through the tree, and then I'm just going to follow along. Now in here you can see that I have some hair right here that's come down, and I'm actually okay if it doesn't capture that. The hair quality here is not really frizzy, or it's not being blown away, and I think that this is going to look okay without just this little area of hair here. So I'm going to just leave that as is. I'm going to zoom out like this, and in this case now I'm just going to press Command J to copy it to a new layer. Now, in copying it to a new layer, I'm going to grab the thumbnail here, click, and I'm going to hold and drag into the other scene here, which is Fall Scene with Path. And then I'm just going to drop it, and then that layer has been brought over here. All right, I'm going to select my Move tool, and I'm going to add the figure into the scene here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here so that I can see it a bit better. And I think what I'll do here is using one of these anchors here, I'm just going to move this around just to make the figure a little smaller in the scene. I think this, so we're guesstimating here, but one way that you can maybe look for is to see, like, this looks like a little stone wall or a fence here, and then if I imagine it, it probably is about knee height, and I'm just going to use that to help me gauge the size of the figure here. All right, so I'm going to put the figure like this, and I'm going to press either the check mark here, or I can just press return. All right, so once I've done that, I want to now make the figure fit into the scene of this background. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to make sure that this layer is selected. Now, just to continue to have a good work flow and process, and also help if you are ever collaborating with a team, I'm going to just double click on this, and I'm going to change this to Hiker so that I am naming my layer. So with Hiker layer selected, I'm going to now go to Image and go to Adjustments, and as I slide down to Match Color, when this comes up, nothing has happened yet, and it's, I think, pretty important to have the preview on. However, I have noticed that sometimes it doesn't render the changes very fast, and it can be helpful to turn on and off this preview toggle just so you can see it a bit better. In any case, The way that this works is that we need to first come in and determine the source. So under the source, instead of none, we're going to click on it, and you can see that when I click on our options, the two options that are open are my two images I have open here. So because I want the hiker to match into the fall scene with path, I'm going to select that as my source. All right, the next thing I need to do is in this file, I only have 2 layers. And I still want it to match what the background looks like, so I'm going to go to Layer, and I'm going to click on Background. When that happens, you can see that it has made an adjustment here. And while the adjustment is helping to pick up some of the same colors, it definitely does not look like it fits into the scene. So my recommendation to you, and this is how I work, but you certainly can work in any method you want. The first thing I like to do is in the fade toggle here, I actually like to change it all the way to the other side. And essentially what this is doing is how much of the colorization is happening on this. So at 100%, it doesn't have any color transition. And as I move it over to the left, I'm getting more and more. Now you can see that nothing came up, and part of that is it's not rendering. So I'm going to click on and off this preview button. And when I hit it again, you can see that now the colorization has come in. So I can see that the color is pretty strong. So what I suggest that one might do is incrementally start moving it over to the left. So I'm just going to click on and click off. And I'm looking for the color so that it makes sense in this scene here. So I am going to just kind of make my best guess. I'm going to probably do maybe about 60 here on my fade. All right, now that I have that, and I can just double check by double clicking on this preview just to make sure that it's rendered and it's actually looking like it should look. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is the color intensity. And just to be able to see what this looks like, if I take this toggle and I go all the way to the left, I'm just going to hit this on and off. You can see that all the way to the left makes it more grays, and it's removed most of the color. And that's what that means is color intensity. If I go all the way to the right and I put it on and off, you can see that it's super vibrant and bright, okay? Almost like it's glowing. So obviously I know that it needs to be somewhere in the center, and I actually think that just because this color, like the turquoise of the shirt, is a bit bright for the scene. So I think that I'm actually going to slide this over into maybe somewhere around there. So I'll just double check here. And I think this is fitting a bit better into the scene. I might be able to go a little lighter here. Like that. I think that's probably maybe a good one here. I'm not going to make any adjustments yet because I want to also check the luminance. So if I do the same thing, if I go all the way to the left, I can click on and off just to make sure that I have, I see what the result is. I can see that if I go all the way to the left, it makes it super dark and black. If I go to the right, you can see that it makes it super light. So it's really kind of changing the value here. So I want to come back to around the center here, which is at 100 here. And I probably want to make it just ever so slightly dull. So I might do something like, I don't know, maybe 92. I think that actually fits pretty well. I'm looking at the black in here, and I'm checking to see the black as it relates to the blacks or the dark areas in the shadows here to see how it looks in relationship to the darks here. Also looking at darks here and darks here to see if this might actually fit into this scene. All right, for now I'm going to go ahead and accept this and just press OK. And then once this is in here, I can kind of zoom out a little bit. And a good way to be able to see how this might look is I'm just going to click off of it so that I can see if it's relating to the actual scene. I can always come in and make some adjustments if I'd like. But for now, I'm going to just leave this as is. And the next thing that I want to do is actually, I need to put some sort of cast shadow so it doesn't look like this figure is just floating on this ground here. So what I'm going to do here is, before I even come in and make the selection that I'm going to need here, I'm going to get my eyedropper tool, which is the letter I. And I'm just going to come into the dark area here, and I'm just going to click on the dark area so that I can get that color in my swatches. So if I double click on this, you can see that it's not pure black. It has kind of a bluish violet sort of undertone here, which is going to work fine. And I press OK. The next thing I'm going to do is, as I hover over just the thumbnail of the hiker, if I right click, I will get this menu, and if I click on select pixels like this, the selection comes back up, which is perfect, because now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer, and in creating the new layer, we're going to now go to our brush tool. Now, I just need a solid, so I'm making sure the opacity is 100%. Doesn't really matter the size of the brush, other than it needs to be a solid brush. And I'm just going to paint over this selection like this, okay? And doing this like this, I'm able to get the same shape of the figure here without, getting rid of the hiker. So I'm going to now press the deselect, which is Command D. And just to continue having good organization, I'm going to double click on layer 1, and I'm going to rename this to Cast Shadow. Okay, so with our Cast Shadow, if I hit the V key, you can see that I can now move this independently from the actual image itself. And then this will help us to build a Cast Shadow. So what I'm going to do here in order to build this is that I know that the shadow needs to go at the bottom and slightly to the side here. So I'm going to come up to Image, and then I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to flip vertically, and then that way the figure is upside down. So if I were to like even it out like this, right? So it's coming from the back end. The next thing I want to do is, if you look closely, you can see that the feet, right? So this foot here is closer to the viewer, and when I flipped it, it means that these touch, but there's a huge gap between this left foot and the left foot here. So the next thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is that I'm going to go back up to my Edit menu here. I'm going to go to Transform, and now I'm going to transform horizontally, okay? Once I have that, I can then move this, and you can see that if I move it like this, that it's going to fit right under the feet. And then before I make some adjustments here, I'm going to take this layer Cast Shadow, I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to drag it under the hiker. And then this will help us to get our actual Cast Shadow. But it's not in the correct perspective. So I need to make an adjustment to the perspective, and here I'm just going to go to Edit, I'm going to go to Transform, and I'm going to go to Perspective. Now, with the perspective selected, I'm going to go to the center toggle here, and I'm just going to slide it ever so slightly to the left so that I get the correct angle, right? So it has sort of the angle that we're looking for here. And then I'm clicking on it, and I'm kind of just readjusting it, okay? I need this to be as wide as the shoes themselves. And you can see that if I move it over and it's wide enough here, it's not wide enough here. So I'm going to zoom out here, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to come down to our free transform. If I hold the Shift key and grab one of these corners, it's going to allow me to adjust the corners without changing everything. And then I'm just going to match this up so that it looks like it fits a bit better, something like that. And then I'm going to press Return. Now I have a Cast Shadow in here, but as Cast Shadows move away from an object, you can see that they start to fade as they go this way. So the next thing I need to do, I'm going to make sure that I'm only working on the Cast Shadow. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mask. So I'm going to click on the mask tool here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my gradient tool. If you don't see the gradient tool, it's actually embedded under the paint bucket tool. So I'm going to get the gradient tool, and I just want to make sure that it's under gradient here, and then I'm going to select the gradient, I'm going to go under basics, and I want to select the white to black, and I want to make sure that the linear perspective is selected. All right, when the linear perspective, when I first touch, the first button that I touch is going to be from black to white. And if you remember, when we do our mask, black eliminates what we're seeing and white exposes. So if I draw a line, so I'm going to click and then draw the line like this, you can see that I can get a fade into our cast shadow. Okay, so I can come in here and I can just fade this ever so slightly like this, and that makes it more believable. All right, so now you can see that we have a little bit of a shadow here. I can always come back into my gradient here or my, I'm sorry, not my gradient, my mask here, and I can make adjustments. So if I were just to click on the gradient tool here, I can then move this toggle to either reveal more or reveal less. So I can, determine how dark or how light. I can even redraw this line if I need to. Okay, so if the angle is slightly off, or I want to change the angle a little bit, I certainly can to just sort of expose how much of this that I want to see at once. Okay, all right, and then I can also click on this and sort of rotate this to get and shorten it and lengthen it as I would like. And this will give me the cast shadow that I need here. All right, so now I'm going to just zoom out a little bit here and scroll down. And if I just hit the V key or just turn, switching to a different key, and then I click on it, you can see that I was able to click off. Okay, and this looks pretty believable. We can continue to make some adjustments here, but the color here definitely matches the environment. We might want to make the grays a bit more, what's the right word? Fuzzy or not as vibrant, something like this. And we can certainly go in and make some additional adjustments. But for the most part, the colors work really well, and we have a cast shadow, and so this starts to make it look more believable in this scene. I hope that was helpful.